Thanks for joining us today on this edition of Business Daily. I'm Lee Ji-yoon in Seoul. We have plenty on our plate today, so let's get started with a look at the day's highlights. Korea revises up its economic growth for last year, but gross national income per capita fails to pierce through the 30,000 mark. A foreign investor's buying spree has been driving the KOSPI up to new highs in recent weeks, and this is mostly due to the perception that Korea's stock market is undervalued. We'll sit down with an expert to talk about this. The Bank of Korea has upward revised the country's GDP growth for last year, but the gross national income per person still remains below the key $30,000 threshold. Our Oh Jung-hee starts us off.
The Korean economy grew at a slightly faster pace last year, exceeding previous expectations of 2.7%.
The country's GDP expanded 2.8% in 2016 due to faster growth in private and government spending and investment in the construction sector. Facilities investment, meanwhile, shifted to negative growth.
The Bank of Korea said in a preliminary report, construction investment rose 10.7% last year from the year before, while facilities investment dropped 2.3%. Production in the manufacturing sector expanded in the 2% range, while growth in the service industry slowed. For individuals, personal gross disposable income, which measures the amount of money a person can spend, went up 3.5% last year from the previous year, but the value in terms of the US dollar rose only 0.9% to over $15,000. The nation's per capita gross national income rose 1.4% or nearly $400 to $27,561 last year. The slow rise is partially due to the weaker Korean won against the greenback, which shed nearly 3% last year on average, reducing the dollar converted value. Korea's GNI has yet to reach the $30,000 mark after surpassing the $20,000 level for the first time 10 years ago. Since 2014, it has been stuck in the $27,000 range. Oh Jung-hee, Business Daily.
The Korean government has announced its budget guidelines for 2018, offering a glimpse of what the country's top priorities will be next year. Our Kim Hae-sung reports.
Job creation, investment in the fourth industrial revolution, addressing the low birth rate and growing wealth inequality. The Korean government announced it will prioritize these four key areas in its budget for 2018, which is projected to top $370 billion.
우리나라는 현재 심각한 저출산과 빠른 고령화라는 인구 위기에 직면해 있습니다. 현재의 인구 불균형 구조가 계속 심화된다면 우리나라의 성장 잠재력이 떨어지고 지속 가능한 발전도 불가능해지는 것이기 때문에 범국가적 차원의 총력 대응이 필요합니다.
Korea is expected to become an aged society with 14% of its population aged 65 or older next year, and the government is drawing up detailed measures to improve the working environment, create more jobs and housing for young people. What is new for the 2018 budget guidelines is the addition of investment in the fourth industrial revolution and addressing wealth inequality. The Labor Ministry said Tuesday it will create 6 new national certification examinations in the field of the fourth industrial revolution, including robots and 3D printers to nurture technical experts. As the wealth gap widens in the country and is set to become a key issue during the upcoming presidential election, the Finance Ministry also announced detailed plans to support those who are marginalized by strengthening basic livelihood safety nets for low-income households and creating more jobs for the elderly. The guidelines outline the priorities for government agencies and ministries as they craft their 2018 budget proposals, which they have to submit to the Finance Ministry by May 26th. Kim Hae-sung, Business Daily.
Korea's regulatory authorities are set to overhaul rules on the country's biggest conglomerates to stem illegal activities, the second such move since 2015. The Fair Trade Commission says it will step up monitoring of illegal profit-making activities, such as specifically giving contracts and work to business units where founding families hold large shares in order to maximize their gains. A total of 225 companies with assets over $4.4 billion will be placed on the list, an addition of 40 firms since 2014. The added companies include 3 Samsung and SK Group companies, respectively, along with 12 from Hyundai Motor Group. The Federation of Korean Industries has vowed to reform and become more transparent as it forges a new future under a new name. But it remains to be seen whether the big business lobby group will be able to earn back the clout it once had. Our Eunice Kim has this report.
A vow to change.
We greatly disappointed our members and the public last year. Once again, we sincerely apologize.
The Federation of Korean Industries promised extensive reform on Friday, 6 months after a parliamentary inspection had revealed its involvement in the shocking Chae-sun-sil scandal, coordinating Chaebol's funneling of funds to former President Park Geun-hye's close confidant. Since then, Korea's once most influential business lobby group has lost much of its clout, shedding key members from Samsung to SK and Hyundai Motor Group.
We'll contribute to the country's recovery with a reformed mind. We'll do our best until we earn back the trust and support of our members and the public at large.
The reform plan, due to be passed by a board vote, begins with a name change. Its 5-decade-old Korean title, literally translated to the Organization of National Businessmen, is to be revised to the Organization of Korean Companies, reflecting the group's pivot from its role as a political lobby group to a neutral facilitator of domestic and foreign businesses. Also on the books, slashing its budget and size by 40%. From a 7-part organization that included divisions in public relations and social affairs, it's to whittle things down to just one division of communication, with 2 offices to support it. The research function will be sent to its affiliate, Korea Economic Research Institute. And to strengthen its think tank role, the Research Institute is set to be reorganized into a dual headquarters system for policy and for research. In a bid to improve its transparency, the group representing hundreds of companies will seek to reach consensus, replacing its chairman's decision-making council with a board composed of professional CEOs of major member companies. The FKI said it will finalize the proposal's details before the first half of the year is up, but with calls for its complete overhaul coming from both the public and political spheres, the once powerful lobby group faces an uphill climb. Eunice Kim, Business Daily.
Korean stocks closed at the highest level in over 5 years last week, rising above the 2180 mark. And analysts say that foreign investors are going to keep looking for more opportunities in the local equity market, as stocks here remain undervalued compared to other global shares. Take a look.
Foreign investors have been on a buying spree in recent weeks, driving the benchmark KOSPI up to new highs and net purchasing some $5 billion worth of shares so far this year. Market watchers say this is mostly due to the perception that Korea's stock market is undervalued. According to Korea Exchange, the local stock market posted a price-earnings ratio of 9.84 as of March 17th, much lower than 18.63 of the US and less than half of India's 20.73. Ever since the KOSPI reached an all-time high of 2,228.96 on May 2nd of 2011, the price-earnings ratio has continued to fall, unlike in many of the other major stock markets. Korea Exchange explains that this continuous undervaluation is due to Korean companies' stellar performance not having been fully reflected in their stock prices. So, with experts projecting the KOSPI to continue its high growth in April on the back of eased global risks and growing expectations for a recovery in domestic demand, the question is, will the market be able to break free from undervaluation?
And to tell us more about this, Professor Yang Jun-suk from the Catholic University of Korea joins us in the studio today. So good to see you.
Happy to be here.
So what does this 2,100 threshold mean for the Korean stock market?
Okay, well, I think it's sort of a psychological thing. Once you get above 2,100, you're at a very high level. It's very rare that we've reached it. Last time that we reached it was 2015 spring.
Okay.
So we haven't reached there again. It does seem to say that the investors are very confident about the near future of the Korean economy. Perhaps we're on the way to recovery. So I think that's what making people excited.
Now, compared to other global markets, though, how badly is the Korean market undervalued?
Okay, well, whenever you measure Korean discount, you usually use the price-earnings ratio, which is a multiple of earnings and price, and price of the stock. And, well, Korea is 9.4.
Okay.
Compared to United States, this is at the end of February. United States was 18.0.
Wow.
But that was probably overpriced because the U.S. stock market has taken a dip. It's probably lower now. And then Japan, it's 14.1. United Kingdom, 14.5. Taiwan, which may be the closest country that we can compare to, is 13.2.
Okay.
And China is 12.1. And then here's one that bothers people a lot. India, who we think of as, well, it's a big economy, but perhaps not as advanced as Korea's, it's 17.1.
Wow.
So a lot of people believe that why is Korean companies undervalued compared to Indian companies? And a lot of people are very bothered by that Korean discount.
Now, what are the reasons behind this then?
Okay, well, some people point out the inherent countrywide risk that Korea has, bringing to mind, well, the most obvious is the threat from North Korea, but there's also Korea's political problems. There's also some structural problems that Korea has overall. And then there's a lot of bad impression that foreign investors have about the Korean market, how it used to be very difficult to make money in. For a long time, it was closed. And then there's a lot of perception of corruption. But I think the key reason, my personal feeling that it's the key reason is bad corporate governance.
Okay.
The price, the PER is measured, as I mentioned before. Part of it is stock prices. And, well, why do people buy stock? Because they believe that the stock price will continue to rise. And in order to do that, you need good management. And, well, the Korean chaebol companies, they're not always known for having good management. The latest example was the merger between Samsung C&T and Chae Industries, where the company seemed to have manipulated the stock prices so that the stockholders got a loss, but the Lee family were able to merge the company at a very low price. And that's one of the things that the prosecutors are investigating about the ex-president Park Geun-hye and the Samsung Group.
Right.
But it's not only that. It's with cases that we had with SK in the past. It's cases that we see in a lot of chaebols now. So I think they don't really have the confidence, the stockholders don't really have the confidence that the chaebol owners are working to maximize the value of the stock for the stockholders. So compared to the earnings that they make, well, if the stock price is not going to reflect that, then they're not going to buy the stock, and that's going to drive the prices down, which means low PER.
Now, but then now with the KOSPI doing better, do you think it's time for it to be reassessed? I mean, which may help the KOSPI finally break free from this range of 1,800 to 2,100, which it had held for over past 5 years.
With a little caveat, I think it'll break through, but I don't think it's because of any permanent type of change. I don't think it's going to really take away the Korean discount. The reason I believe that is, first, there's always going to be a slight upward trend because of inflation.
Okay.
So eventually it'll break through 2,100, 2,200. It may take years, but because of the inflation, it'll rise a bit every year. And then currently the higher price rise seems to be from influx from the American market.
Okay.
If we remember, during the end of last year and during the beginning of this year, a lot of money flowed out of Korea into the United States market because there was a lot of optimism about U.S. recovery and Donald Trump. And then for the last few weeks, that confidence that they had about Donald Trump seems to have collapsed a bit. And now the money is flowing out of the U.S. market, and part of that, I think, is coming into Korea. So we may break the 2,100, 2,200 barrier for a while. I've even heard that it might break 2,300, but I'm not sure if it'll be permanent.
Okay.
So it'll probably fall back down. But for now, it's going to be on the rising path.
Now, I know you mentioned this a little bit before, but let's talk a little bit more about the so-called Korea discount and how this comes into the big picture.
Okay, well, as I mentioned before, a lot of people are hoping that this rising stock price means that Korea discount is going to disappear. I don't think that's going to happen because I mentioned some of the structural problems that we had before, the North Korean threat, political problems, as well as the corporate governance problems. Those still are there.
Right.
Now, it may be that the Korean recovery will perhaps make foreign investors feel more confident about Korea. But other than that, there has not really been a lot of legal institutional change. So I'm not, so the underlying reason for the Korean discount, I do not think has been removed. So I think we'll always see the PER for Korea lower than most other countries, at least until we get some of these really structural problems worked out through law or through long tradition.
Now, there are also questions about the recent U.S. stock rally, which we have witnessed after Trump's presidential election. But now we've seen the trend being reversed these days. So are we seeing this bubble pop?
Okay, well, U.S. does have a fairly solid recovery. They're creating jobs at a very good pace. Their inflation is still low, and their GDP, while perhaps not as high as the Americans want, is certainly better than they had a few years ago. So I think there's some justification on keeping the stock prices rise. But I think there was an undue optimism about the kind of policies that Donald Trump was going to bring, how much he was going to streamline and change Washington, D.C. And I think that confidence is disappearing quite a bit.
Okay.
So U.S. stock, I think, should have been on an upward trend, but it was much faster than it was warranted. And now it's adjusting. So you can call it, I guess, a minor bubble bursting or probably adjustment would be a better word for it. But I think United States, because it is on a solid path of recovery, the stock prices for United States in the long term should be on a rising path.
All right, we'll keep our eyes on those. Thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you.
China's group tour ban to Korea over the deployment of U.S. missile defense system THAAD seems to be having a knockback effect on China itself. While the number of Chinese tourists visiting Korean duty-free shops has dropped by half since the ban came into effect in mid-March, the number of Korean travelers set to visit China has also fallen by half. According to the latest figures from Korea's Culture Ministry, the number of Chinese travelers coming to Korea dropped by almost 22% from March 1st to March 19th compared to the same period last year. The ministry predicts that figure will drop by nearly 50% on year once the whole month is calculated, especially since Beijing's ban only came into effect on March 15th. Korea's Lotte Duty Free says sales to Chinese customers dropped by 40% on year from March 20th to the 26th. Local travel agency Hana Tour says the number of Korean travelers booking trips to China for April has also dropped by 50% compared to last year. Our furry friends, like cats and dogs, for many Koreans have become much more than just a pet, and instead more like family. As the number of pets in the country continues to rise, related businesses are also looking to benefit from this trend. Our Lee Ju-young has more.
Office worker Ryu Ji-soo drops off her pet dog Laon at this daycare center before going to work. She says now that she sends her dog to school, she doesn't have to worry about leaving him alone at home anymore and sees an improvement in Laon's behavior as well.
사람하고 똑같다고 생각돼요.
I think it's the same as raising a child. I'd spend a lot of time and effort if I were sending my child to kindergarten. If I think of it that way, I don't think it's that expensive.
Despite the hefty price tag ranging from about $225 to as much as $700 a month, the school welcomes about 20 to 30 dogs a day on average. The first thing they go through at the school is being assigned a homeroom teacher. Then, after a general health checkup, teachers take about 15 minutes per student to play games designed to develop their intelligence.
지금 애들 간식 찾는 게임 하고 있거든요. 지능 게임하고 스트레스 해소하는데 가장 좋아서 저희가 지금.
After a long, full day of play, the dogs then enjoy a nice bath in a jacuzzi before getting dropped off at home. The teachers even handwrite journals to share with their owners what progress their dogs have made that day.
Puppies all have different personalities like children. That's why when you plan programs for each dog, we tailor them to their condition and health. We get a lot of inspiration from kindergartens for children. We adopt some of their programs and make them more suitable for dogs. And we plan to continue doing that in the future.
Companies in the pet industry are actively making use of technology as well. Take startup Pet Friends, for example, a premium pet shop located in a southern area in Seoul. When a customer buys a product on the app, the order is registered immediately. After being quickly packed up with a handwritten manual, the Pet Friends package is ready to go. Customers can receive their order within an hour, as the company guarantees. Pet Friends CEO says after launching his delivery service 5 months ago, sales have skyrocketed by 200% every month.
Currently, we only deliver products. But eventually, our goal is to provide all services related to companion animals through delivery. In other words, since busy pet owners always run into problems, especially if they live alone, we hope to help find solutions for them.
According to the state-run Animal and Plant Quarantine Agency, over 1/5 of the country's households, or about 10 million people, are said to be raising a pet as of 2015. What's more, Korea Rural Economic Institute says the pet market, which was worth $808 million back in 2012, grew to about $2 billion as of last year. Come 2020, and it's set to expand to $5.2 billion.
The population is on a decline, but with the low birth rate and the graying population, the number of animals is on the rise. Why? Because we now accept them as family. If before we used to put the focus on people, now I think services targeting pets will develop. That's why it's only natural that this industry keeps growing.
This rapidly expanding market is also contributing to job creation. Korea Companion Animal Management Association says the number of people applying to become a certified pet manager has increased every year since 2012 to about 2,880 people last year. Once certified, the qualification opens many doors, allowing them to work at places like animal hospitals and dog training centers or become breeders. With an increasing number of people demanding higher quality services for their beloved cats and dogs, animal hospitals like this are becoming more specialized. This general hospital, famous for its heart clinic, hires 17 veterinarians in total, each with a specific concentration.
One veterinarian can't treat everything. In my case, I mainly do surgery and treat animals that are pregnant or have skin or eye problems. Some vets specialize in cardiology, while others only treat cats. There are also other vets for internal, chronic, and hormonal disorders.
While goods and services for pets get better by the day, experts say whether or not they're happy is a different matter. They add that instead of stopping at providing them with material goods, increasing interaction and constant communication are some of the best ways to truly bond as a family. Lee Ju-young, Business Daily.
And that wraps it up for today. Thanks for watching. We'll be back tomorrow with more at the same time, same place for your Business Daily. Until then, goodbye.